welcome everyone. We'll just keep admitting people. So yeah, I think what I was saying was essentially what's being suggested here is not to do with understanding or knowing. It's not. There's nothing here that you have to. Nobody is being asked anything here to understand something, or there's nothing on offer here. It's just there's a suggestion being made and it's heard as it's heard, but it's heard in open friendship. And, it's shared in open friendship, and it comes from no thing. It's not coming from a knowledge bank that Kenneth has. It's not noble, it's not understandable. It's concerned with an energetic resonance regarding an apparent contraction of an apparent me. So essentially, this is it. It's always what appears to be happening. It's never anything else. What's been looked for by the person is always what appears to be happening. As a person, as a separate individual, it feels like that there's a world out there and there's a me in here somewhere behind the eyes or bound by this skin. And once there's a sense of there being a me who has a life and a life out there, there's a question and there's a yearning for something. There's a wholeness appears to have been lost for the person. And in that, inherent in it, is a sense of unworthiness. And there's many other aspects that we can talk about in the next hour and a half that emanate from that sense of apparent separation, such as causality, time, space, cause and effect, so on and so forth. But essentially, it's all boiling down to the sense that there's life and there's my life. And we're told this and indoctrined into this. And it's since we're children, small children, that you have a life and you got to make something of it. So you're responsible for it. And what happens to you in your life is as a result of the work you did or didn't put in, so on and so forth. And it's not considered, or rarely considered ever, that there is no actual you, that this you is a story, is a narrative, is an appearance. It's taken for granted that there is a you and that you are you have a life. So that's essentially what we're talking about. As small children born into the world, there's only boundlessness, there's only energy, there's only aliveness. And a small child, a small baby, does not differentiate itself from its mother up to approximately 6 months of age, at which between 6 and 12 months, it starts to see that there are sense that the mother and itself are one. They're actually one. There's no differentiation. And at some point, then the baby becomes aware that there's a mother. So that's my mother, and that separation energetically starts. It's still very boundless. It's still not very constricted. But at some point, there's a sense of being a separate person. I'll pin my video here. Sorry. Yeah, that's what apparently happens. And all the time there is that sense of being a separate person. There's a question that something seems to be missing. There's a yearning for wholeness. The person can't put their finger on it, what it is they're looking for or what's apparently missing, no matter how happy or enriched they are in life or miserable or whatever. It doesn't matter what the story is or the narrative is. There can be a sensitivity to something is not quite as it should be, or something it appears to be missing. And so when there is that sensitivity, then this communication can resonate and be heard. It is heard as it's heard. It does not matter. There's no agenda here for this to be taken on board or to resonate in any particular way. If it's rejected, it's rejected. That's what's happening. It's there is no separate person. There is no separate individual from this perspective. So there's no agenda for anybody to hear this and go pop or not be separate, because there is no separation at all. There never has been. So it's not that there's a character here that's separate, that's no longer separate, and that there are characters out there that are maybe tuning in that are separate and need to not be separate. There is no separation. There is only what appears to be. And in that arises a sense, a contracted sense of being an individual. And so that's what was going to be discussed. So if there's a question, it's there to be asked. Again, it's not to do with understanding. The individual is in a closed loop of its own knowing, and in that sense of being a person, the world is knowable, and the person negotiates through life like that. It enters the unknown and makes it safe by knowing it, or rejects it and keeps it at an arm's length if it's unknown. And that's the some of the qualities of being a person. So basically, if people have any comments or questions, we can just launch into them. Yeah, sorry for the at times it seems this is getting better, and then I reverse to my old ways, and it's a lot of foostering. But foostering is it. So we're going now anyway. Any problems, just let me know in chat or unmute or something, but I think everyone can hear me, so yeah.
I have a question, I guess.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's my first time dialing in, so
Great. Very welcome.
I think you're doing fine.
Yeah, it's okay.
I've never seen a Zoom meeting start on time ever, so
it is what it is. Yeah.
I guess my question, or maybe it's just a comment, I'm not sure yet, but can you talk about glimpses, or where you seem to fall away for what seems like afterwards of maybe a period of time, or you get a little insight or a glimpse of what it's like to not be burdened with a sense of self. Yeah. But that, then the self kind of resurrects, seems like.
Yeah, it
somehow.
seems to, yeah. Yeah. So the glimpses, when there's a sense of being a person, the person after the glimpse is back, let's say, but this is a story, but the person is there, and they feel as though something has happened to them. So they feel that they've had some sort of glimpse or insight, and they want that to integrate that into their lives, or make it more permanent, maybe you could put it that way. So that's what tends to happen. And really, they think that they've had an insight, or they've gotten something, or whatever language or narrative is on it, doesn't really matter. Like a Catholic would say the Holy Spirit descended, maybe, or a Zen Buddhist would be a Satori moment, or what, so on and so forth. In actuality, what, from this perspective, what a glimpse is that there's the energy of being a me. It's an appearance. It's not real. It's real and unreal, as everything is, but we can get into that later. But it's that contracted energy appears to not be, or it appears, you could say it falls away. It doesn't. Nothing actually happens here, but it appears to fall away. So everything is seen. The boundlessness, the wholenessness is seen by nobody. It's seen by nobody. And then it seems to be very common that the contracted energy of a person kind of comes back then. And then you're then in a scenario where there's someone there who's then trying to figure out what just happened.
And like immediately claim to it and saying, like, I had this peak experience or some nonsense. Yeah. And it just seems like that happens as soon as there's a me back in the driver's seat. It starts telling a story about what just happened to it, as opposed to...
which is totally understandable and logical. I mean, of course, that's what happens. I mean, like the whole sense of being a person is that linear moving through time of moving into things. So something, this is how things, appear to happen to the person in time and space. So it's this logical, causal, linear movement. And so therefore something appeared to happen that is, they can be very subtle or they can be very profound. So they can be very, very subtle, or it doesn't really matter, but it's very, very logical to the person that something happened to me and I'm going to try and figure that out then. So it's just totally, of course, the person would try and do that, like, and they would bring their paradigm of the world or the way they see the world to that. So, as I said earlier, if you're a Catholic, you might figure it out one way, or a Zen Buddhist another, and so on. So that's the way it seems to happen. I think I would actually say that everyone, because everyone is already boundless. Energy, just nothing and everything. That's all there is, actually. Everyone already knows this, and everyone is you could say that the energy of being a person is just an artificial thing that's overlaid on what's appeared to be then, so that everybody is actually having glimpses all the time, but there doesn't seem to be a recognition that something has just happened there. It seems that most of them are quite subtle, and that they go kind of unnoticed until there's a big bang. And the bang it's just undeniable. It's absolutely undeniable. It's unquestionable. It seems more real than anything that has ever apparently happened in that person's life before that. And hence the very intense search, can start, of like, selling the house and going to the ashram in India or whatever it is that happens. That just, that doesn't surprise me at all, but it will play out as it plays out then. And what's being suggested here, and what's and other places also, is an unconditional and an uncompromising, clear communication that actually it wasn't a gain. You didn't gain anything. And actually what appeared to happen was this contracted sense of being a person just simply wasn't there and appeared to then come back again. So that's it then. And then it's that everything that appears to happen is it. Everything is it, always. But the person, if there's an energy of being a person there, it's like, well, this isn't what it feels like when this was glimpsed. So it has to be, I have to maybe work to get back to where I was. So I have to be more peaceful. I have to be more still. I have to be more mindful, and blah, 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 blah. And then the list just goes on and on. And so that's, the person gets busy, and then it can be the case that they get exhausted with that. And somewhere they see that, that all that progressive endeavor to something is just it is something just not right. It doesn't, and that will last as long as it lasts. It's an energy. All of that stuff is just the sense of being a person is filled by certain endeavors to by certain teachers or whatever it is, and it lasts as long as it lasts. It doesn't, and then this communication can just boom. It can just resonate. It's stunning how it resonates. People could just click on a YouTube video, and that's it's game over. Like, it's game over in a way. And other people could click on it, and it could be, there's often a lot of anger, or what do you mean this is it? Blah blah blah. So
or
it's just
fear.
our fear. Well, it's predominantly fear. Yeah, I mean, no matter
Yeah,
what
this is
the
the most
reaction.
dangerous thing I've done in a while, just dialing into this.
Yeah, absolutely, it is. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it
Thanks.
is. There's a sense of it's very confronting for the person, what's being suggested, because the person is in a nice safe bubble of me. And so what's being suggested is there is no me, there is no individual, and that can be very unnerving to the person. But at the same time, then it can be, because this is totally known already, there's an energy that it can just resonate also, that there's something in this, you could say, or whatever. Yeah. So it's heard as it's heard. Yeah. But glimpses are, also just a narrative as well. They're just a story too. People get hung up on, one of the most common things is, well, what happened to you, or tell your story. And it's like, it doesn't matter. It's completely irrelevant. The story is absolutely, completely irrelevant. And what really they're asking is, tell me the sequence of events that led to you falling away. First of all, I didn't fall away because I wasn't there to fall away. So nothing actually happens. This is one of the terrible things about this communication. The person is so used to living in a world where things happen, that this is, what do you mean nothing happened, But really, at the heart of that question of, well, what happened to Kenneth, is really, give me a roadmap that I can use for me to also fall away. And there is no roadmap for you to fall away, because you're not there. There's just what appears to be. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and you're very welcome to the apparent meeting.
Hey, Kenneth.
Hey, how you doing, buddy?
Thanks for sending me the link, even if it was a little late.
Yeah, disaster. Well, yes, it is what it is. Yeah, just
No, I'm
one of those days.
I appreciate it, man. I think, well, you touched on it before. I think you said we would go into it later, but the whole this is everything and nothing. And I don't really want to wait till later. When you said it, I kind of want to talk. I want you to go into that a little, if possible.
Yeah. This is everything and nothing, that's not understandable or knowable by the person. From the person's perspective, they are something who's living in a world, something else, and they see things and objects. So they're living in the real. You could say they're living in the real. I'm real and the world is real, and that really is my car, and that really is my job, and that really is my child, and blah blah blah, everything. So there's a half alive feeling, because actually life is and isn't. It's real and unreal. It's life and death. Whereas the person is living in life, and death is some big blobby thing that's different, that's separate, So in that sense of being a person and everything is real, everything is also knowable. So life is knowable because it's secondhand. It's knowable because it's an abstraction from the whole. So there's things happening in a linear sequence, and they're happening to me. And this is a big illusion, because this is nothing appearing to happen, which is not understandable. And this is the part that's very unnerving for the person, because the person lives in the known and is the closed loop of their own knowing. So things being unknown and unknowable is very, very unnerving for the person. Because where am I in that, So that's it. This is nothing and everything, and nothing and everything. I don't understand that.
Yeah.
If anyone tells you they understand that, they're full of shit, because it's not understandable. Because in the same way that this is not, what's appearing to happen is not knowable. It's so immediately just what it's happening and it's finished at the same time. It's not happening and then kind of then slowly dying again. It's alive and dead at the same time. It's nothing and everything. It's foam, and these are just words, but this is the dangerous immediacy of what is. That is, it echoes of it when people speak about the unknown and fear of the unknown. That's really what they're talking about. It's the same thing they're talking about. And fear of death is fear of the unknown, is fear of your own absence. That's actually what you long for most is what you fear most.
So fear of death or fear of the unknown is just a quick recognition that it is completely unknowable, that this is about nothing.
Yeah, it's fear of you not being there, fear of your absence, which is also paradoxically what's being yearned for. I did say what you yearn for, but it's not actually what you yearn for, because you're just a closed loop of you. But it is what's being yearned for. What's being yearned for is wholeness, right? And wholeness this is already wholeness. And it's just unknowable. It's just boom. It's just wholeness. But wholeness, then, for that to be seen, it's for you, that comfortable, closed little bubble of you, to be artificial, to not be real. Which that's the unnerving part then. And then when you appear to fall away, there's often a lot of laughter, because you were never real to begin with. So, and this is what you've always looked for. So we're going around chasing, like a dog chasing our own tails, thinking that what we're looking for is when we get the next job, when we get the promotion, when we get more money, when we get a bigger house, when we blah, 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 blah. I could talk all night, but everyone knows what I'm saying. It's always around the next corner. But then there can be a lot of laughter at the seeing that, well, it had always been this. It had never left me. What I'd always looked for had always just been just aliveness, just what had appeared to happen. Last week I spoke a bit about photography and the light, the not looking for a subject. And this is known in photography circles, that some photographers do this. They don't look for a subject. They look for light, and a subject, just whatever subject is there. It's a certain quality to light, be it early morning or whatever, and it's kind of symbolic, or it reflects a bit what I'm speaking about here, in that what's actually looked for is not what's appearing to happen in life is completely irrelevant. It doesn't matter, because it's just aliveness. It doesn't matter. It's just simply aliveness. Whereas for the person, it's absolutely important what's happening. It's everything.
Well, that goes along with free will and choice too, because there's a feeling of I can choose to make this good or bad, or I can, it's my responsibility to make it good, to make it work, or to go in line with what society says is good and bad and all that. That's part of it. Yeah, it
is. Yeah, of course. I mean, free will and choice is an illusion that emanates from the sense of being a separate self. Yeah, but it's also just like the idea or the notion that you are a separate person who has a life, who can do something with it. It's the same. It's the same as free will. Of course you have choice. Of course you can. You can't choose to pump blood around your body, but there are certain things in your life you have control over. So therefore you need to put energy into looking at the things you cannot change, accepting the things you cannot change, and changing the things you can change, and blah, 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 blah. But actually you have as much choice about your life as you do to pump blood around your body. You have as much control over your life as you do over your organs that are, processing glucose to make energy. You know what I mean? It's just it is actually like that. There's no control. It's a total illusion.
If helping people happens, or if being a dick happens, that's just like
that's anything. Life being a dick, I mean, that's what it is. From the perspective of the person, there's a living in this is the dualism. The dualism emanates from there being a me. So then there's the play of opposites from that apparent center. There's a good and a bad. There's a right and a wrong. There's being a dick and not being a dick. And there's a move towards the good and a rejection of the bad. There's a move towards the pleasure and a rejection of the pain. This is also reflective of the half alive thing I was talking about. So you don't want the pain, but you want the pleasure. And, then you have a cohort of people who are, taking all sorts of medication, and they don't feel the pain anymore, and they don't feel the discomfort anymore. And then they're kind of stunned as to, I can't feel any joy or pleasure. Well, of course you can't. You know what I mean? That's just symbolic of that sense of a person, that we're all doing that. Is as a person, we're all doing that. Is pulling in pleasure, and the reason we're pulling in pleasure is we've lost wholeness. Apparently, we've lost oneness. Has apparently been lost. So there's a sense of comforting yourself for that. but it is the pleasure, it is the pain as much as the pleasure. This is the big kind of shock, you know. It's the, of course it's the pain, of course it's the discomfort, of course it is, of course it is, it has to be, it has to be whatever is arising. And then that's the fullness of what I'm speaking of or pointing towards, is this full on woo aliveness. And whereas a person, it's a half alive, it's this, it's, you know, it's filtered, everything is filtered through it, and it doesn't, you know, it's whatever happens is happening, and pain is more painful, discomfort's more discomforting. It's just because there's nobody there to filter anything, and it lasts for as long as it appears to last, and that's it. It's not seen by anybody, but it's very clearly seen by no thing that everything is complete. It cannot be any other way. It cannot be any other way. For the person, it can always be better, and it's going to be better around that next corner.
Thanks, man.
Nice to talk to you, Perry. Haven't talked to you in a while.
Hello, Kenneth.
Hey, how you doing?
Yeah, fine. Thank you.
Good.
Could you talk a little bit about what happens with motivation after the me apparently disappears? Is there motivation to? Isn't a lot of the motivation that people talk about, will not that also fall away if the me falls away?
It would be unique to every apparent person, so there would be. It depends on what aspect of the motivation is connected with the story of me, or the narrative of the person. So yeah, motivation can largely fall away because there is only what appears to be happening. So there's no motivation for, but like still say, okay, I'll pick an example. So fitness, there can be a sense of a move towards fitness. Okay. So there's just, but it's seen then if the person isn't there, which the person is never there, by the way, but if there's no longer a contracted sense of being a person, the difference would be that there would be maybe more movement or more of a draw towards maybe movement and an energy to becoming fit. But then if there was a person there, there would be a sense of, oh, I'm unfit and I need to get fit. So the motivation then is, it's not quite this, and it will be when I get fit. But then in the first one, the former would be a sense that being unfit, the body being unfit is clearly already it too. So therefore the motivation would be, you know, so yeah. I mean, it's everything, when the apparent me falls away and it's seen there never was a me anyway, it's not describable. Nobody can ever ring you up and describe, and then you're saying, well, I've been listening to you for years and I can't tell you now what you were pointing towards for me. It's not describable. And also there's this kind of sense maybe that everything's going to change and but actually it's very common that very little changes at all, really. But I don't know, maybe, you know, you could have all sorts of changes all of a sudden, boom, you know, a new job falls apart, this falls apart, possibly anything could happen. But it's common also for nothing really to, very little to change also, you know. Yeah.
And fear, and a lot of fear also falls away.
Fear,
you know,
falls away completely, yeah. But fear also arises, though. It's not that you're, it's not that you're in, fear doesn't happen, and fear is full on fear, but it's for nobody. That's the difference. And also, the other thing about that is the person is in a bubble, a safe bubble of me. And in that sense, the sense of being a person is protecting itself from a world that's outside of it. So that's kind of what we talked about earlier about the unknown and being safe from the unknown. There's a constant sense of engaging with what is unknown and knowing it, or keeping it at a distance. An example would be when you meet someone you don't people don't know. You can see it in the eyes. There's a tightening of the eyes, and there's a sense of, even openly, it's very common in America to network, so you're networking. So you're meeting someone you don't know, and you're very quickly, very, very, very quickly evaluating, is this person any use to me? Is this person a threat to me? And if they're either of use to me or a threat to me, then they get dealt with in a certain way. And that's kind of, that's a feature of that sense of making the unknown known and comfortable. So there's a sense of safety in being a person. And because life is only half alive and half lived, actually, life is very fucking dangerous. Life is very, very, very full and dangerous and not knowable, and you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what's going to happen. But as a person, it's safe, because it's that sense of me keeping myself safe in the world and everything. That's the way that's the energy of being a person. But then when there's no longer anybody, it's just full on, and it is dangerous, because anything can happen. Anything can happen at any point. And that's the full on aliveness of it.
I think the physical fears still are there, if a lion comes, but the psychological fear, the fear of being alone or being let down or making somebody angry.
The fear that emanates from fear of rejection, and the person, absolutely, the person is in a state of fear. Fear is one of, actually, when people go through emotions and talk about this emotion and that emotion and everything, a lot of them have their basis in fear. So the person there is a sense of protecting that me, and that can be emanate from fear.
So that largely falls away. I'm trying to get something.
I know, I mean, you're asking questions and they're answered as they're answered, but it's not describable either. I can't give you a list of what appears to happen when someone apparently falls away. I really don't know, and it will be different for everyone. And I can't also be prescriptive about it. It's not describable. It's very, very ordinary. Also, it can sound esoteric, and it can sound complex maybe when we're speaking in certain terms about it, but it's very, 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 very ordinary. It's just ordinary life. It's just what appears to happen, and it just starts to be seen that is just whole and complete as it is, no matter what it is. You can't get anywhere with this. There's no understanding this. There's no getting anything. It involves a loss. From the person's point of view, what this character is suggesting here involves a loss. It doesn't involve any kind of gain whatsoever. An apparent loss, because you're not there to begin with. You're not going to fall away because you're not there to fall away.
Thanks.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can, yeah.
Hi, it's Doreen. Kenneth, how are you?
Hey, Doreen, how are you?
Oh, pretty good. Thanks for the invite.
Good.
I've been noticing, not just recently, but even before that when, let's say you talk and then I talk, there's nobody in there saying, this is what's going to come out of the mouth right now. It's just so spontaneous, so sudden. There's no chance. And then it's so obvious now that how can we ever think that it's a person, and that there's blame and guilt, and then I think, well, now that I know that I don't exist and I never have. Well, now I'm going to say really profound things and I'm going to talk to my friend. It doesn't happen. And it's not because Doreen is making a choice. It's just that I have never been here at all, ever. So there's nothing that's changed to make a decision. No.
Yeah.
No, it's nothing. No choice. No free will. No Doreen at all. Gone. And never had been.
And never was there. Like that's one of the most obvious things, and that's one of the more common things that people say. It's so obvious that you were never there to begin with. So that's the artificial. I think artificial is about it's as about a good a word as you could come up with. That this whole thing was a story of a Doreen or a Kenneth. It was always, but it feels absolutely real to the person. It's a lived reality to the person. It's a cellular contracted reality. It's not an idea. You know, I absolutely am Kenneth and I absolutely have a life and blah, 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 blah. Yeah. So it is that way till it isn't. And when it isn't, it's just very obvious. It's so obvious that
well,
there's
I have
only
this
one.
friend. I have this friend, and she's got all these, issues. And so I earlier said, your wholeness, your life. This is life, and you're not a small little Norma. Oh, I'm Norma. You can't take that from her. And then I think, well, why did I do that? But see, there's no Doreen there to make that choice whether or not she talks to this person about it or not. Yeah. It just happens.
This is not. Absolutely. This is only apparently happening now. Always. So and whatever appears to arise is what appears to arise.
Yep.
Whereas the person is living in a lived reality of I'm speaking to person A and this is what's going to happen and there's a prediction of what is going to happen. So I've had this glimpse and I'm going to talk to my friend Anne about this glimpse and blah, blah, blah. And that's the way it is. But then when there's no longer anyone, it's just there's no agenda for anything. And then it's only what appears to happen. And then something could appear to be spoken about or not. And it doesn't make any difference whatsoever.
Right.
Like you said at the beginning of your go on, sorry, Doreen.
No, you go.
No, like you said at the beginning that like the mind would think, oh, there's no longer a sense of me here, and the mind would think, oh, I'm going to write a book and I'm going to tell everyone about it and it's going to be amazing and everyone's going to be blown out of the water and then there's nothing to say. There's nothing even to say about it. Like
there's no one to say it.
There's nobody to say it to, and there's nobody to say it. So that's the way. I mean, like here it's just a communication that comes from nothing. It's just an agendaless communication, and it appears that there are questions so directed towards this character. So then it appears then the communication comes from here because there are questions, but there's actually nothing to say really.
Right. And then the whole includes the pain and joy, and we don't get to pick that. See, there's no one to pick it. It just happens. And so there's nothing personal. I had chronic pain for a year, and this body did. And it was, I didn't, Doreen, this wasn't involved. It's just life. And, it's all equal. It's all beautiful. And I liked one thing, and this is why I wanted to talk to you about unconditional love. You said that to me one time, and I believe, not believe, but I see when I saw the glimpse the first time, it was whole, it was love, and I knew that was it. Unconditional love. But yet there's no people and no separate things. It's all unconditional love.
It's all unconditional love. That's all there is. You could say that all there is unconditional love. Like that's a very unsatisfactory expression, but it's I would say that from time to time. But it's unsatisfactory expression in the sense that it's also not it. But and it's also one of the other things with it is when people think of love, they think of interpersonal love, which this unconditional love points to is absolutely impersonal, has nothing to do with anything or anyone, has no demands, no agenda, and is just simply life. That's what life, our energy is. It just is as it is. Yeah, it's stunning, absolutely stunning. Yeah.
When I had my first glimpse, I did a lecture in front of people that I was working with, and I didn't know at this time that I didn't exist, but I saw what I thought was what I really was. The title of it was Resting in the Unknown. And I knew that was very true, because it is all unknown. There's no known.
No, there is no.
And I have to rest. This body mind has to rest in that, because if it doesn't, it's like that guy earlier, it's fearful. It's all fearful.
But that body mind doesn't have to do anything, because there's nothing to be done, and it is only whatever. There is only that. So there's no escaping it. It's not a thing that can be gone into and then rested in and then come out of again. Because that would mean there are two then. There aren't two.
True.
There's only oneness.
True.
And no matter what appears to happen is it. So even if there's a glimpse and there's a falling away and it no longer feels like there's a person, and then there's an energy of being a person back, then that's also it. That's also it. So there's nothing it's impossible for there to be anything that appears to happen that's not oneness, because all there is oneness. It's inescapable.
Yeah. Well, Kenneth, it's been wonderful talking with you.
Yeah.
Thank you for all you do here, and I will see you probably next week.
Okay, Doreen, a pleasure as always. Lovely to hear from you. Yeah.
Okay. Yep. Lovely to talk to you.
Yeah. I just had a message about dying and grief. So I'm just going to say a little bit about it, about someone dying. So I think in general terms, when someone dies and you feel like a person, I think what the most obvious thing that struck me about it, the difference was that when you feel like a separate person and someone dies, there's a loss in it. You've lost that person. So if it's your mother, you've lost your mother. And as it can be, their grief is very individual, and the grief plays out as it plays out. When there's no longer anybody, it's very obvious that there's no loss. So what happens is the body mind dies, but there was no person in there, just as there is no person in there now. So there's no loss, because there's nowhere to go. So what people perceive as separate people is just energy that lights them up, and the energy that lights them up is just one boundless energy that can't be created or destroyed, if you want to look at it that way. So then it becomes very obvious that there is no death and there is no birth. It's only an appearance. That's what it is. So if the person dies or the body mind dies, it just plays out as it plays out, but it's very obvious it can't be any different than it is. I think that's all that's kind of coming up about that. If anyone wants to ask anything further about that, just jump away or jump in or whatever.
So it can be like, it's obvious when somebody you love dies that the world just keeps on rolling, right?
The world doesn't keep on rolling. Even when someone dies and you feel like a person, that is a separate person whose life is over. Okay, so that compounds the grief and compounds it's an energetic, all of that's an energetic reaction anyway. But when there's no body, it's seen that there was no body over there anyway, and so it's only a natural dying of the apparent end of the body mind. So there's no loss in it, and that it's not that person's life is over, because all there is life. Nobody is there that has a life. All there is life. You could put it that way. All there is energy. So there's no death. So there tends to be not so much sadness about death, or if there is sadness about the death, then it's full and it's there and it's sad. But there's also, I suppose you could say, what hints at it a little bit is how people don't really admit this very much, but if someone is, when someone dies and you go to the, apparently dies, and there's a going to the funeral and there's all of that, and at that ceremony, I've often heard people speak about, well, not often, but I've heard people speak about how much they were filled with a sense of love and joyousness as deep and as profound as the sadness they were also feeling, because it is everything. It's just everything. But it's in society, it doesn't really, it's not, it's kind of frowned upon to speak about that a bit. So you have to talk about how tragic it is and how terrible it is and all of that. But that hints at it a bit. It's just everything. It's just everything. It's just everything. And if when someone apparently dies, it's or any other kind of event, it's just wholeness. It's just always the invitation to the apparent person that there's nobody there either, because it can rock that sense of me having a life, an ordered linear life, and I'm moving through it, and it shakes everything. So that shaking of everything is just is unconditional love, really, because in the invitation to see that you're not there. As a topic, people are very reticent to talk about it, and generally there's more of a fear of it in Western society to speak about death and dying, and that's just indicative of the sense of being a contracted, separate self who is real and lives, has a life, and doesn't really want to talk about not being there.
Kenneth?
Yeah.
Eamon here.
Oh, Eamon, how you doing?
Not too bad. The energy that we know well is electricity.
Mm-hmm.
And this life-death thing, say the electricity comes into a light bulb,
Mm-hmm.
and for some reason the filament breaks in the light bulb and the electricity goes out, or somebody switches the light switch and the energy is no longer in the light bulb.
Mm-hmm.
Is this what happens to us, that we have this energy? It pervades every cell in our body, and some of the
We don't have
legends
anything.
talk about this as being the soul.
Yeah, we don't have anything. Nobody has anything.
No, but what I mean, you were saying we have this contracted energy.
We don't have a contracted energy, though. We don't have anything. I'm
Yeah,
not
well,
saying that anybody
but
has anything, but life appears to be a contracted energy that experiences itself as a separate self.
Yeah. Did you say when a baby has this boundless?
When there's a sense of
It's
being
not contracted.
When there's a child is born, there's only boundlessness, and
Yes.
I was speaking about that. Some people are well aware. This is very well known, and some people may not be aware that a child does not differentiate between itself and the mother. They're one.
Yes.
They're one unit. There's no sense of being a baby and a mum, because they think about 6 months. I think I could be wrong on that. It could be a bit longer, and maybe it also varies. But then at that point, then there is the mother. So then there's a noticing of the mother, and at that point, and then the sense of being an individual, a separate individual, then appears to become more of a reality. So that sense of boundless just gets more and more constricted, possibly teenage. The stage of being a teenager is possibly energetically a kind of final cementing of that, because there's rewiring in the brain, and then at some point there's a very strong sense of being, I am an adult, I am a separate person in the world, and that's not questioned, or that's not really questioned. That's not really questioned at all. And to question it is actually lunacy. What's been suggested here is total fucking madness. it's total madness. It's like you cannot go after that. You cannot question that. But that's what is
Well,
being
is it not
suggested there.
that
There is
there's-
no there. It's all an appearance. It's all an energetic appearance. And when there is that sense of being a separate self, all the while there's a searching to not be a separate self. And so because you're actually not really a separate self, what's being looked for is always what already is. That's kind of it in a nutshell.
There's death is not like the electricity leaving, say, a television. If somebody hits the switch,
Yeah, I like the analogy, Eamon. Like, I mean, it's nice analogy of electricity that you would feel if you want to say the light bulb, the person is the light bulb, and you're looking at the light, and you think when the light goes off, oh, the person is dead, but really all you were looking at is light, really, and all the light is electricity. So all there is energy. You know, it's a good analogy. I think it's a good analogy, yeah. And so therefore, that's like, yeah, absolutely. It's totally energetic. So yeah, so there is no death then. It's very, very obvious that nobody ever dies and nobody was ever born. And whatever happens when someone apparently dies, that's what apparently happens, because there maybe, I don't know. I'm not saying that there's all going to be whoop-de-doo or, you know, this is all great and, you know, it's everything. It's everything. Anything could happen. Sadness could arise. Anything could happen. But this protracted sense of grief that's ongoing is particular to the person who has lost another person. And that just plays out as it plays out. I mean, you're talking about something it's a mystery, really. And if someone has a partner that they're with for long enough, or someone has a child that dies, it's very, very profound. It's a very, very profound thing. And it will play out as it plays out. That's that simple. So, and it's not that simple either.
Hey, Kenneth.
Hey.
You mentioned the cellular contraction that sort of defines the me. Can that vary at certain points in your life so that you're gradually maybe that cellular contraction is gradually lifting?
It's not real. It's not real. It's an appearance. So that's the first thing about it. It's not something that's real. The person is living in the real. And this is the cruel thing about what I'm talking about here. It's not something that's real and then that stops happening. It's always it's always unreal. So it's just that boundlessness and energy appears to be as contracted as it appears to be. So some people, apparent people, that contraction is very, 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 very tight, apparently. I would suspect that you're talking maybe personality disorders. I don't know if you're familiar with personality disorder, but some of these personality disorders are things that people in mental health would find it hard. There's certain disorders that people find it hard to diagnose, and it often can get labeled a personality disorder. And the experience here of seeing personality disorders was extremely contracted sense of being in a person, so much so that it causes absolute fucking havoc. That it's everything is just me, to the detriment of everything and anything. It doesn't matter what sort of chaos is playing out. And that's just an extreme. And it could also be a very gentle sense of being a person, of someone who's very caring and loving and mindful of other people. It doesn't matter, actually. It's just that it appears as it appears. But to get maybe back to your question, it's not that, really, I think what you were saying is that, am I more of a separate person at some stages of my life and less of a separate person at others? You're not real at all. Ever. Yeah. So therefore, it doesn't matter if it's more of a separate person, except that there would be, the more of a separate person you are, the more of a maybe a pain that can go with that, or a yearning, or a disquiet with that, an unsatisfaction with that, maybe, possibly. But like, if you were approaching it from a logical way, it would be then that you can just make yourself not be as much of an individual, and then you could somehow approach it. But then that's also nonsense, because all you have then is somebody who feels like somebody but feels like less of a person, or whatever. So it doesn't address it at all.
So it's a misinterpretation, regardless of the intensity of it. It's still
it doesn't matter. No, it's completely irrelevant. In the same way that it's irrelevant what appears to be happening in your life. You think it's your life, and the focus is always on the next best thing, and blah blah blah, and it doesn't matter. It's totally irrelevant, actually. It's just an energetic, it's just in the play of light. It's just an energy. Yeah.
Thank you.
So it is always what appears to happen. What's been suggested here is, it is always what appears to be happening, even if that is a yearning for freedom, a sense of contraction, a sense of confusion, a sense of discomfort. It's all energy. That's all what it is. But the person would value clarity over the confusion, and if confusion arises, feels, well, it can't be this now. It can't be this confusion. It has to be clarity. So I was clear last week, and now I'm going to move back to. I want to move back to being clear, or whatever. You know what I mean?
I was wondering if the lifting of it is sort of gradual, or
no, there's nothing that's gradual in the story. Things can feel gradual or are not gradual, but in actuality, everything is and isn't. So it's timeless. Everything is just boom. Everything is immediate. Everything is timeless. So it doesn't matter. Like, you can't, if it's eternity, you can't approach eternity through time.
Right.
And which is what people are trying to do with meditation. I want to do 4 hours of being still, and then I'll be there. It's just completely, it's a joke.
I found that out.
Yeah. And that's it too, though. That's it too. People sometimes say, well, I wasted 50 years. There's been conversations with people here who've meditated for 50 years, and sure, no, who's wasted 50 years? Where's the 50 years? Where's the waste? It's just nothing. Everything is whole and complete at it. It can't be any different than it is.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks. And someone's making a comment about what I was saying, that deep loss could still happen. I think I did say that anything could happen, anything could arise, a sense of absolutely indescribable, unfucking fathomable sadness could arise. Absolutely. Of course, that would be it also. So of course anything could happen. I think I specifically said that. I'm not describing when there's nobody there that it's all going to be lovely and nice and never was anybody there anyway, and isn't this lovely? Everything will play out as it plays out. But what is seen is that there was no loss. There is no loss, because what was that apparent person was actually the light that lit them up, which never goes anywhere, because that's all there is oneness, is energy.
Hi, Kenneth. It's Vanita.
Hey, Vanita.
Speaking of grief, I seem to be doing these. It's very close to the surface for me to grieve. I don't even know where it comes from or what's going on. I don't. I just. Something here with you guys. There's just there's a release. There's something that's going on, like within the first 5 minutes of you speaking today.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
And
it's a very
sobbing.
it's
Yeah.
when this communication appears to happen, it's totally boundless and free and agendaless and unknowable.
Yeah.
And it resonates. When it resonates, it really, 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 really resonates. It's very profound. It's not like anything, it's totally unknowable and indescribable, and it's stunning. Yeah, but it resonates as it resonates, and I think you saying in the first 5 minutes is kind of indicative of how it's nothing to do with the words. It's nothing to do with understanding anything. It's
Yes.
absolutely energetic.
Yes.
Mm.
Yes, and it's. I have these thoughts, while I'm sobbing.
Yeah.
That I don't know if I don't. Anyway, I noticed that I try to figure it out or whatever, but basically, I feel like I'm deeply, deeply compassionate for myself. It's like a grieving of my own self, my own death, my own self's death. I don't even have the words, but
No, you can't describe it. I can't describe it.
Yeah.
Any of this, any of what I'm trying to talk about, is not describable, or I can't. There's only point in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So whatever feelings are arising are whether it doesn't matter
Okay.
what they are, and there's no sense of there's nothing that needs to be retained. Normally when there's some sort of communication, it's all about you're feeling this and this is profound and you need to hold on to this, and there's nothing that it can't be held on to, and it does not need to be held on to.
Yes, right.
Yeah, because
Okay.
it's boundless. It's totally boundlessness, energy. It is in whatever appears to happen. So if there's sitting at your computer, apparently at work, and whatever, it's something mundane. I'm trying to think of something mundane, and that is it. That is in unconditional love. Like there's nothing to be taken from this. Because if something is taken from it, it's not it.
Okay. Thank you.
So I just saw that somebody in the chat had asked about unconditional love being more easily seen in some things, art, beautiful creatures, than others.
yeah.
Maybe we can talk about that.
Yeah, sure, yeah. Unconditional love is not seen by anybody. If there's a sense of somebody seeing unconditional love, then that's just an interpretation of something. Unconditional love is not knowable or seen. All their unconditional love in this sense, the way it's used, is about just energy, which is everything. It's all that is. So it's not one thing distinguished from something else. As a person, we feel that love is has a positive charge to it, and that's the play of dualism. That's the play of opposites that comes from the person. So it's not to do with that interpersonal love or positive. It's not positive or negative. It just is all that is, and it's not knowable.
This wasn't my question, but like, is the awe of nature, or I don't know, sometimes you are dumbstruck by something that's so beautiful that there's like a suspension of your, is that anything like resonance, like in this context? Like, is there any relationship, I guess, between when something resonates with you? It's when I hear you or Tony or somebody else say things, sometimes certain words will, I don't know.
It's not, there's no way of, because it is everything and nothing, there's absolutely anything can resonate at any point. And the sense of being a person is untouchable. It's not affectable. You can't affect it by anything. So this is shared in the sense that it's shared. It's not, there's no agenda, as there is nobody from this perception. There is no separation, and it just resonates as it resonates. So there's nothing. There's like all of that special, not special, is completely emanating from being a separate person. So a beautiful, profound piece of art is that there's a, it's that relating to that, whereas there could be beautiful art, but it's when there's nobody, it can have a different quality to it. It could still be, the mind body could there could be a recognition that it's beautiful. Still it's beautiful, but there's not that relationship with it. I don't know, am I getting at what you're
yeah,
actually
kind of
clear, like,
it's like a personal kind of response. And it's no more than that. Yeah.
So like, I mean, when the term unconditional love could be, it depends, I mean, it's not something that's knowable, though. It's not, the person will inevitably or invariably refer it back to the person's experience of love, which is interpersonal love, which is that's a meeting of needs, really.
Yeah, and even grief is, in a way, it's like, I've lost this person, you know what I mean? And that person was real and I was real. And this was this unique, precious expression of humanity that the world has lost. And it's really not, that's all, when you think about it, very highly personal.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. It has a completely different quality to it when there's somebody there, and it just plays out. You got to be, when people, you got to be careful, though. People think, oh, there's something wrong with one and there's something right with the other, or one is better than the other, or whatever. And as I said, anything could arise, anything. Like, I mean, if there, it's even on a molecular sense that when there's a bereavement, it's a very, it is a cellular, it's a body reaction to that. And it just is what it is. But there's a big difference between feeling like a person who's lost someone else and then they're just being not feeling like a separate person and just there being energy. And then when the only thing I can really say about it is that the loss is not there. The sense of there being a loss is not there. So it's very, very clear that nobody has gone anywhere. Should be anyway. Well, I don't know. It's clear here that there's no loss. There's nowhere to go. Whereas when you're feeling like a person and someone dies, then it's different, yeah. That person that had a life, there's an ending. Like this life as it is doesn't have beginnings or endings or starts or finishes, or it's just boundless energy, unknowable. And all of that comes from being a separate person, time and space and so on. Mm. So I usually start finishing up around this time. If anyone has any questions, you can just unmute yourself. Or if not, we'll say buenas noches.
Hello.
Hello.
Talking about death. So, what is it that dies eventually in the physical death?
There is no death. It's the mind body stops functioning, appears to stop functioning, but there's nobody in there that dies, because there is nobody in there anywhere. There is nobody. Like, as when you feel like a separate person, you feel like you're in here, and it's your body that's bounded by the skin, and that you have a life, and that on death, then your life is over. You never had a life. There is only life. So it's nothing. What you are is nothing, no thing, and no thing is everything. Another way of saying that is that there is only energy, which is energy is nothing and everything. So from the perspective of a person, you live in the real and you see other real people, real trees, everything is real, and the unreal is not seen.
Oh, I get disconnected.
Okay.
I missed
I can hear you.
I'm sorry.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. I missed part of your answer because
yeah. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all a resonance anyway. So that person, as in that sense of being a separate person, then there's someone who was born and they lived in time and then they die, and everything is in the real. So someone really dies, and actually life is real and unreal, and you are no thing, and no thing is everything. But as a person, you feel like the something, you live in the real. So then it feels like that someone really dies and someone is really born, and it feels like there's a beginning and a middle, and there's time, and there's all of these things that appear to be absolutely real, and they're an appearance. That's what's being suggested. So it's a mystery. Everything, like someone dying or anything else, is it's as much of a mystery as anything else, and it's unknowable. Because life as it really is unknowable. It's not. It's just immediately just this.
Yeah.
That's
It's
about
as
as
much
well.
as a mystery. Death is as much as a mystery as being born.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is death. This is death. There is no thing called death. You know,
Yeah,
we
but
live like we have life.
yeah, no, I
We're
know.
alive, and there's life, and there's death. Life and this is life and death now. This is life and death. This is nothing and everything right now.
Yes, I
Yeah,
meant,
losing you again. You're
okay, I
dying on
meant in
me.
the
You're
way you
dying
were
on me,
talking about
Adri.
grief and you know.
You're dying on me, Adri. We're losing you. You died, and now you
I
came
can
back to
see you.
life
I can
again.
hear you.
You came back to life. You rose like Jesus.
Oh yeah. Okay. I guess that's
Yeah.
it.
I guess so, yeah. I mean, like, yeah, people want concrete answers and they want something that's
I
knowable.
know, you know.
And you know, it's just someone sent me a message privately, and I just that's how I brought it up. There's never any agenda in these talks. It's just a question appears out of nowhere, and it's answered out of nothing. So,
Kenneth, hi,
yeah.
Kenneth.
Thank
Can I
you.
just ask
Hey,
you a
yeah.
question before you go? So you say when there's no me, there isn't a loss felt if someone dies.
There's never a loss in the sense that when there's a sense of being a person, there's a feel that you've lost somebody because there's
Yeah.
somebody over there. And when
Yeah.
there's no longer a sense of a person, there's nobody over there because there's nobody anywhere. All there
No,
is
but
aliveness and energy. So that when the physical body appears to die, it's seen very clearly that there's nowhere to go and there is nobody to go there. So that's what appears to be happening. And whatever arises for that mind body is what arises. Like, I can't say what could arise or not arise, and every apparent death is different. So you know, obviously saying goodbye to your 95-year-old grandparent as they pass away peacefully in their bed has a different energy to your 5-year-old child dying tragically in an accident. I mean, obviously, the 5-year-old is gonna be very, very, very fucking profound. And even if you're not there as a person, it's not describable. Like, I mean, there's going to be just it's going to be everything. It's going to be everything, but it's not going to be as opposed to maybe the 95-year-old dying peacefully. But the difference would be that if there was nobody, the only thing I could say about it would be that it would be seen that nobody died because there was nobody there. There is nobody anywhere. And also maybe another possible thing you could say about it is that nothing can be any different than it is. That's one element of when the apparent me apparently falls away. It's very clear that everything is whole and complete as it is. But when you feel like a person, it feels like things can be different. And if that hadn't happened, then this would have been this way and that way. And people are looking back at mistakes that are made and things that happen and so on and so forth. And they live in the idea that, you know, things could be different than they are. But when the me is no longer there, it's very clear that everything just is whole and complete as it is. It can't be any different. It just cannot be. Any idea that it would be different is that it is an idea. It is a thought or whatever. Yeah.
you see, the way it's not me that's lost someone, but the way I hear you saying it, when you say when there's no me, you don't. It's as if you haven't lost someone. But the way I'm seeing it is like there's nothing excluded from this. So everything is exactly the same in that, you know, you've lived with someone all your life and now that body is taken out of it. And so everything's the same in the sense of apparently the same. Apparently, you know, there's going to be apparent loss.
Apparent loss, yeah, absolutely, of course, yeah.
Apparent feelings and apparent thoughts
Yeah.
about that. And
Yeah,
all that.
and whatever arises is, whatever feelings arise are free to arise.
Yeah.
So if there's a sense of overwhelming sadness, then there is that. The difference would be that there's not somebody who's sad. There's just full sadness. It's completely, absolutely full, and it just is there, and it's that's what appears to happen then.
So the only thing that's gone.
What's suggesting is that there's someone who'll fall away, and then what's left is this kind of body mind that's not touched by anything and is unwavered and is in this kind of all that's about really is the person projecting on a state that you must be talking about. You're in some state, so if someone dies, you don't really give a fuck, you're not touched by that because that's unconditional love. That's not what's being suggested here whatsoever. If anything, everything is more full on. It's much more full on. So if there's sadness, it's absolute sadness because there's nobody there filtering the sadness or trying to push away the sadness or do anything with the sadness. So everything just is as it is, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I can't describe death I also can't describe life in the same way I can't describe life, because life and death are not two separate. It's all energy, and it's not describable, and it's not knowable. Whereas people feel that life is knowable and death isn't knowable.
I think sometimes it can come across that, and when there's no one there, it won't seem like there's a loss and things like that. But you've explained it really clearly, and that's what
I mean. That's the words that are used here. That it's clear that there is no loss, as in because it's clear that all there is oneness. So where would the loss be? There would have to be two-ness for there to be a loss.
Yeah.
There would have to be something that is now gone somewhere.
Yeah, but
nothing is ever gone anywhere. Nothing.
But describing a concept there, aren't you? You're describing the concept of loss, whereas actually loss would be energetic, wouldn't it? It'd be feelings and emotions and thoughts and memories.
It's not. So, it's not that there's an attempt to describe the difference between when there is apparently somebody and there is no longer a sense of being somebody in relation to apparent death. That's what's happening. It's not describable, but that's about as good as an effort I can make,
Yeah.
So.
Good effort, Kenneth.
Thank you. Why, thank you, Anne. Always lovely to hear your voice.
Very good.
And thank you, everyone else, for your boundless patience at my foostering and fumbling. And thank you for apparently attending these meetings and all the emails I get. It's great. I don't get to respond to many at the moment because busy, apparently. But it's wonderful. Really, really wonderful. And same bat time, same bat channel, I guess.
Thank you, Kenneth.
Thanks, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Kenneth.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Take care.
Thank you, Kenneth.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Thanks.
Thank you.
See you.